So hey guys, welcome to another movie review. Today I'm going to be talking about the new Mulan remake from Disney. This film is available to stream on Disney Plus right now for an additional $30 charge on top of your Disney Plus subscription for a one-time charge, by the way, so you're not being charged $30 every month just for seeing this one movie. So it's just the one movie, premiere access. It's something new that they introduced on Disney Plus. You pay $30. You don't have access to Mulan until it eventually becomes free on Disney Plus. So it's just a nice little way to see this new release. It's not being shown in theaters right now due to the pandemic, but it's a nice little way for Disney to kind of give us this film without having to find a proper release date in theaters, since it's kind of hard to find a release date in theaters these days. So, in Mulan, you guys, if you haven't seen the original animated film, I highly recommend that you see that because it is really good. This is a remake of that old Disney film from, I believe, 1998 is when the animated film came out. So this is a retelling. It's done in live action this time. But in the story, you guys, it's about a young woman who is living in a time in China where there's one man per family being recruited for this war. And unfortunately, because her family doesn't have any sons, it's just her and her sister. The army wants to recruit her father, but unfortunately her father's very old. He's already fought a lot of wars already. He's injured, so he can't really stand on his feet for too long without kind of falling over a little bit. So the army wants to recruit him since they don't have any sons to give for this war. So Mulan doesn't like this. So basically, one morning before her father was about to go out to this war, she basically volunteers herself. She basically cuts her hair and ties it up and finds ways to kind of make her seem more like a boy than a girl. So that way the army would accept her in and not even think about hiring this woman to basically come and fight in this war for them. So basically, this war breaks out. One thing that they did differently in this film, too, is this film has two villains over the animated film's one villain. And so basically, there's this witch and this guy who's leading this really, evil army, and they're trying to take over China. And it's up to Mulan and this army to stop this this evil army from succeeding. And she also has to do this while hiding her real identity, which is Mulan. She goes by this boy's name and wants everybody to believe that she's this man in the army and things like that, and that her family kind of secretly had a son and things like that. So throughout the course of this film, she has to help them fight the war while also hiding her real identity, because if her real identity gets exposed, it might bring dishonor to her family. So overall, guys, I really like this new Mulan remake. I will say right off the bat, though, I do like the animated film better. I do think the animated film is a little more energetic. It balances certain genre elements a little bit better, like the comedy and the drama and the action and things like that. But this is a good remake. This is a really good remake. I will say right off the bat, too, I like this a lot better than what they did with the Lion King remake last year. I thought that was kind of just like a straight shot-for-shot remake of that movie. They didn't really try anything new, didn't try any kind of risks. Visually, beautifully well done, probably the most beautiful visual film ever made. But unfortunately, there was a shot-for-shot remake. They didn't try anything different. So luckily Mulan doesn't go that right. They do try a lot of things differently. It is a much more mature retelling of the Mulan story. They find a way to kind of balance the live action, the fantastical elements really well. But at the end of the day, though, I kind of let this film just kind of say to myself, I kind of like that animated film a little bit more. So let's go over some positives and negatives of this remake, though, you guys. For the most part, this is a very mature retelling of the Mulan story. So for those who were kind of hoping for a more mature live-action take on the Mulan story, this is definitely that movie. People get hurt in the war. War is very violent. It's almost kind of more scary to watch this time around because it is done in live action. So this is a much more mature retelling. I would even go so far as to say I think really, really young kids that might even be kind of bored with this movie just because it is so realistically in our time and realistically told in the sense of what would this story really be like told in the time that it was happening in and things like that. So this is a very mature retelling of the Mulan story. I also really like the battle sequences in this film. It's definitely in the spirit of like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. There's a lot of scenes where, characters are running up on walls and fighting, and there's tons of katana blade fights, tons of hand-to-hand combat fights. I'm a huge Jason Scott Lee fan. I've been a fan of him since Dragon, the Bruce Lee story, where he did a lot of his own stunts in that movie. And from what I'm able to kind of notice in this movie, I think he did a lot of his own stunts in this movie too, as one of the villains in the film. So just really cool to see these really neat battle sequences for a Mulan live action movie, it definitely needed that to make Mulan come to life in live action form. I know this character's been getting a lot of crap lately online. I like the female villain in this movie. I like how she kind of helps build the Mulan character, helps her kind of realize things about herself that she wasn't realizing before, being more honest with herself. It's a villain that kind of helps Mulan become the character that we know and love in this live action version. I like the overall villain too. I kind of liked her motivation. I liked kind of how it could have been what Mulan could have turned into if she wasn't guided in the right direction. So I do like this female witcheress villain that they went with. I thought I was going to hate it at first, but just the way how they developed the Mulan character and kind of turned her into what she became, I think really kind of added something with this female villain. So I like this female villain that they threw in the mix this time. Also, the scenes that deal with Mulan's honor when she's trying to be honest with somebody, when she's trying to give, a humble apology and things like that, when she's trying to really kind of get people used to what she really is. I thought those scenes were handled very well. Any scene that deals with her honor, whether it's dishonor or real honor or her gaining honor with something, I thought all these scenes were very well handled in this movie. I also kind of like the musical score in this film. I like how they didn't just completely make up a new score. They did try to kind of go in the spirit of what Jerry Goldsmith did in that animated Mulan movie, but also kind of go in its own way, giving it its own little tune and things like that. There's little small hints of that original Mulan score here, and I like how they didn't just make up a new one. They actually found a way to kind of retell it and also kind of do a new spin on it and things like that. So I like the musical score they use in this movie. Also, the set designs and the color palette used in this film are absolutely beautiful. So whenever Mulan's wearing something red, it's a very bright red. When you're on, the battlefield, or you're on this training camp where Mulan went before going off into battle, the set designs look very real and organic. They feel like something that really would exist in that time period around the time that a war like this would break out. So, like I said, the color palette too is really great, with really showing off the reds and the purples and all the bright colors that are displayed throughout the movie. For my negatives of Mulan, though, once again, I like that original film a little bit better. I think it was just a little more energetic. Yeah, maybe call me a kid still at heart, but I like the Mushu character. I really felt his presence missing here in this movie. I don't know how they could have used him in the context of this movie, but I missed him knowing that there's a better version of Mulan out there that has him in it, that has a way for him to fit in. So I thought the original film just did a better job at that. And like I said, it was just something about the energy of that first film, the energy of it. Rather, maybe it was the musical score and the musical numbers and things like that, but something about the energy of that first film was missing here. And I think this film kind of hurt because it didn't quite have that same energy as that first film. There is occasionally some weak CGI here in this movie. There's a scene dealing with a spider that ruins a party near the beginning of the movie. The spider looks really bad. It really looks like something out of like a Windows 95 computer. So some of the CGI in this film, unfortunately, is a little weak from time to time. I also didn't like how the Mulan character didn't have much of an arc this time around. I really felt that in the animated film, she really kind of started from nothing. You sensed a sense of strength and bravery in her, but that develops more and more as the film progresses. So by the time the film's over with, she really has to fight her own battles and really kind of work her way to the top of this training camp and things like that. And this film in particular, though, it just felt like there wasn't much of a character to develop to begin with, because she was kind of perfect at the beginning of the movie, and she didn't really have to kind of work very hard to become an even better, stronger character, I guess. So I didn't like how there wasn't as much of an arc this time around with the Mulan character. I thought that was better handled in the animated film again, too. I also thought this film would have benefited from more humor. There's a couple jokes every once in a while, but they're very far and in between. I thought this film would have definitely benefited from some more jokes, and I think they could have kept the tone that they were going for and still added a couple more jokes in there. I felt like it really needed some more of those. I also didn't like how the Emperor was in one of the battle scenes. If you used the Emperor from that animated film, you would have not been able to put him in one of the battle scenes. The man is way too old to be fighting in any battles anymore. Yes, I get it. You get Jet Li to be in this movie to play the Emperor, but the man's a little old, so I thought that was a little a little unusual to see him in some of the battle sequences here because the man's kind of old. Um, I also thought the whole thing with the chi in this movie was a little. It felt like a very unusual way to kind of be like, hey, the character's fully grown and developed now. Here you go. It just felt like a very quick way to get from point A to point B in certain points of the plot. That part of the story really didn't intrigue me very much. But overall, I'm going to give Mulan, the 2020 remake, an 8.5 out of 10. I think it's a really well-made movie. Not as good as the animated film, like I said, but there's things about it that are really respectable and I really liked. I think if you like that Mulan story just in general, I think you'll be happy here. If you really were kind of intrigued by where a live action Mulan could go, it's not a bad way to go at all. I would even say, why not pay in a couple $30 to see this movie on Disney Plus? I know a lot of people were mad about the price tag for seeing this on Disney Plus and not being on the big screen and everything. I think it's worth it. It just made it there. Like I said, the animated film is better, but this is a good retelling. It's a good remake. It's kind of along the same line as me of what the Aladdin remake did with Guy Ritchie back when he made that in live action form. Really good movie. They did take a couple risks, good and bad risks, but I think it was a solid retelling of the Mulan story this time around. So 8.5 out of 10 for me. I really like the new Mulan remake.